Alright, a little over 20 hours later, we have the engine floating mid-air. Lots of room for activities in there, and a very sweaty forehead. Me and all my fashion, I forgot to set up the engine stand, so I hope my shitty little strap holds. G'day guys, welcome to part 5. I've just had a week off on a family holiday, so I haven't done anything the past week. So we are still engine in the engine bay. What have we got planned today? So to begin with, we've got transmission cooler lines and fuel cooler lines. So you've got to disconnect them from the engine. Shouldn't take too long, just a couple of clips. And yeah, I've just realised that I'm basically every single video wearing the same singlet and shorts. No, don't worry, I've got like 3 of the same singlet and 3 pairs of the same shorts. So they do get washed. But yeah, these are my working in the workshop attire. Not to mention the old safety Crocs. Today I'm going a bit snazzy. Got socks on as well. But I am getting a bit warm, so I might take them off. But yeah, alright, so first things first, cooler lines. Let's get into it. So it's pretty easy for the trans cooler lines. You just got this little bracket here to remove up the front underneath the aircon compressor, and then for the fuel cooler, where's the top side, furthest one back, and then you're free. And then basically all you need to do is make sure that these 2 lines here are free, and that will come up with the engine. Alright, so the next step is removing the starter motor, which is also on this side, so we're just going to get into that now. So scratch the starter motor for now. I'm actually supposed to pull the sump off first, which makes sense because it's quite tight in there. So we'll switch over to the sump and then I'll get back to the starter. Alright guys, that's the sump and the pickup off, or the main part of the sump and pickup off. Just all 8mm bolts and your oil level sensor, and the harness dismounts on the side as well. So there's like 15 or 16 8mm bolts around the outside, 1 8mm bolt holding the oil pickup in. And this is the main thing that differentiates, I don't even know if I said that word proper, but I'm going to roll with it, between the other 2.7 litre engines. So like in your Citroens and your Peugeots and Territories and stuff, they have a different style sump. The Discovery has this sump, and the main difference is the baffles in it. So the baffles are designed to keep oil in your in and around your oil pickup at different angles. So when you're forward driving and all that, you don't starve your engine of any oil, whereas the other ones have more of an open sump, so the oil can swash around a lot more. So it is important to swap your sumps over. You sort of don't have a choice anyway, because I don't think they'll fit with the other style sumps, but yeah, that's the main thing. They just put baffles in to keep your oil around your pickup when forward driving and stuff like that. Obviously you've got the other stuff like the fan is obviously engine driven on this, and that's another reason for or when you're forward driving, it's driven off your engine speed. So if you're in low range or whatever and your engine's revving high, it'll drive high. That's what I've read anyway. Whereas the forward territory is just an electric fan, and obviously all your pulleys on this are a 6V channel pulley, whereas on the forward territory there are 4V channel pulleys, so you have to swap all that crap over. But I just thought I'd give you some info on the Sump itself. I found that interesting. It's a nice little design they've got going on. Alright guys, so that just took me like an hour to get that starter motor off. I had to remove the fuel cooler as well, which is those 4 plastic lines, and then you see here, but you got to get it from the top, a 10mm bolt, which bolts the fuel cooler into place with those 2 locating rubbers on the bottom there. As far as the starter motor is concerned, your main positive cable is a 13mm nut on the back, and then you have your relay cable, which is a 10mm nut built into it. Now this was really, like, I knew this was going to be bad, but I thought, you know, I've got that much stuff pulled off of this car now, I should be able to pull it pretty easy, but it still was a bit of a hassle. So the important part is the starter motor sits like this in the car. So all I done was I tilted it forward a touch and slid it back, lifted it up. Obviously I didn't have this nut on, so this positive terminal here is the part that always gets you caught up. So you tilt it clockwise just a tiny bit, so this way, lift the back up, and then you want to get it just on the inside of this recess of the engine mount here. Now if you can get the starter motor, that positive terminal, if you can get that to come across and into here, then it lets you actually tilt the starter motor down, and once you've still tilted the starter motor down, it can fall through this gap here. Now that took me an hour to figure out, so hopefully that actually helps you guys. But basically same with the cabling, I had to undo the 2 mounting bolts, the 13mm head mounting bolts first, because I couldn't quite get to the nut. I slid the starter back and rotated it towards me, got the nuts and stuff off of the starter motor, and then yeah, rotated the starter back this way like so, and then you lift the arse end up and yeah, tuck that positive in this little groove here. Now that's the most important part, and it's quite hard to get that angle, but just keep on doing little adjustments until that positive tucks up in there, and once you get it inside of that groove, you know you'll be able to get the starter motor out. But looking at how much of a wanker this is, I'm going to put a new one on when it comes to fitting the new engine, because really don't want to be messing around with that. And also not going to run some crappy brand. I'll go and buy another Bosch one, or Denso, sorry, Denso starter. Don't be cheap. With how hard this job is, I would not be going out and buying like an OEX one or something, because you'll pay for it in the long run. So now I think I've got to get the flex plate bolts out, which I go through the starter motor, I'm pretty sure, and there's 4 bolts. I'm unsure of the size yet. I'm assuming they're going to be a 13 again, but I'll be attacking them now. Alrighty guys, it's 6:30, so I'm going to call it a night. I've got 7 retaining bolts out at the back, so transmission retaining bolts. Got 7 of them out of the 15, they're 13mm. And I've got these 4 flex plate mounting bolts out as well, which I'll get my torch for you. So you've got 2 holes up there. Sort of can't see the second one, but it's there, just above the main starter. So it's easy for you to line your hole up using the starter motor hole, and then you just gradually turn the engine around until you get to that top hole, which you can just see above there. So that's the access for your flex plate retaining bolts. There's 4 of them and they're 13mm each. So they're pretty easy. I just was watching as I was rotating the engine around. You rotate off your crank, which is a 21mm, and yeah, you just get all those 4 out. And basically I've got 8 bolts left of this mounting face here for engine to trans, and then I've got the left hand engine mount nut to remove over here somewhere, and then I've got the right hand engine mount to completely remove tomorrow. But basically this thing is, I'd say, probably 2 or 3 hours away from removal. Yeah, but we'll start again tomorrow. Morning everyone. Just going to carry back on with those bell housing bolts, and then yeah, I'm preemptively going to say that the engine should be out today. But I am on a bit of a time frame because I do have to skedaddle later on, so we'll get straight into it. Carry back on. One thing I did do is I nipped up to Super Cheap this morning and I just bought these stepped spanners. Sorry, I went to Tool Pro. I just bought these step spanners just so that I can just clear a couple of the bolts when I'm trying to crack them off. I got them at work obviously, but not here, so now I've got them here as well. Should make my life a bit easier. And I also nipped up and just bought some single hex impact sockets, which is a bit frustrating because I still got them in my car. Alrighty, so all the bell housing mounting bolts are off. I only poured 14, 16 including the starter motor, but it says 15 here, but I've ran my fingers around everything and taken photos up there and I can't see another bolt, so unless one hasn't been put back in when they got the tranny rebuilt, I don't know, but I'll soon find out if I try and lift this and it's tight as. Next step is left hand engine mount. And that's not too bad to get to. You can get to it from in here. And I've already pulled this turbo outlet off, and then it comes to disconnecting vacuum lines and fuel lines and a couple other things. So next couple of hours I should have this engine out, hopefully, or beginning to lift. Right, so left hand engine mount is just an 18mm nut. Pretty easy to get to, quite accessible from the left hand wheel arch. And just make sure, if you guys are doing this, that you start labelling all your bolts and stuff. So I just got all these Chinese takeaway containers left over from when me and Kerry get Indian. I do love me Indian food, especially butter chicken. I know it's boring and predictable, but God, it's good. Yeah, so I'm kind of lucky that Kerry's a bit of a plastic Nazi and always has to reuse it or recycle it properly. So I've just grabbed all the Chinese takeaway containers and yeah, used them as my bolt organisation. I don't know why I'm calling them Chinese takeaway when I'm telling you that I buy Indian food, but we'll roll with that anyway. So the only thing holding this in now is the right hand engine mount. As you've seen underneath, do yourself a favour and get yourself a trans jack. Don't do what I've done. It's really not good practice. So just use a block of wood. And again, that 100 mile an hour tape to support the front of the trans. I've dropped the rear of the trans, so the cross member down just a touch, so 20 mil. It was just recommended to drop it down a bit to help keep the torque converter inside the trans. On a few of the forums and a couple of YouTube videos and stuff that I've watched, so I'm doing that one. And then I just realised that I've only got one engine stand, so, and one engine crane, so I'm sort of like, I'm going to need two to do the swap over stuff and all that crap. So I'm going to have to ask the old boy if I can borrow his one. But I currently am now going to be having a tyre on top of a pallet, on top of a tyre, holding this engine where it needs to be. That's a new one. And then I'm hoping if I move all my toolbox and stuff, that I've got enough room to swing this engine crane in and pluck her out. Otherwise I'm going to have to put this all back on its wheels a touch and push this car back a metre. I think I did some quick maths. I just looked at the gap. I reckon I'll just fit it in and then I should be able to swing. So I come in straight like this and then swing the engine out like that. And then, yeah, need more room. I've not got much room for activities, so let's see how we go. Alright, a little over 20 hours later, we have the engine floating mid-air. Lots of room for activities in there, and a very sweaty forehead. Me and all my fashion, I forgot to set up the engine stand, so I hope my shitty little strap holds.
Are we going to open this now?
Yes. I didn't have the project manager on site at the time to tell me to set the stand up, so that's on her. No engine? Engine! No engine? Engine! Yeah, boy! So I'm glad I laugh at myself because you guys probably don't. That actually, the whole process took me just under 21 hours, and that's me not trying to rush or anything like that. But honestly, I think in terms of difficulty, it is a difficult engine to get at, but it's definitely not the worst. And I don't know, I think if you do the approach that I've done and just sort of, you know, tick along at it rather than put a lot of pressure on yourself to get it done, then it's actually a bit more of an enjoyable experience. It does have its dramas, like the starter motor and that crossover pipe are a bit of a bitch to get off, but I don't see this as like the worst job I've ever had to do in my trade. I mean, if any of you are diesel mechanics and worked on Komatsu gear, I used to have to work on the little Komatsu dozers all the time, and I can tell you now they're a hell of a lot worse than what this is. So for me, in comparison, so I'm like, yeah, it is annoying, it is bad. I think the lack of tooling for me was probably the most frustrating part about this job. But I mean, that's, you know, just nip down the road, get some tools. But as I said before, long series spanners, battery ratchet, and some ratcheting spanners, and a variety of extensions, and you know, you're not too bad. You should just cruise on through it. But I spent 5 days and about 4 hours each day just doing this. So if I really smash this out, I wouldn't be able to get it done in 12 hours. I'd say probably maybe 13, 14 hours to get it done. Just because a lot of the bolts are tight and a bit of awkward to get to, but it's not too bad. So for you guys that have been watching the little removal segment, I've been getting a lot of positive comments from you, and I do appreciate it, and it actually is sort of making me enjoy this process because I want to get the next video out for you guys. I do have a lot of parts coming now, like a lot of parts. I've spent $5 grand on parts now, so the current rolling total including the engine is $9,500, which is expensive, but that's me going above and beyond. You don't actually have to go to the extent I have. So I've bought a new turbo cartridge, so I'll be pulling my turbo apart, replacing the whole center with a new one. I've got one new injector, and that's because I know that injector number 2 on this engine was running high values, but the rest were perfect, so I've just got new seats for them. So I'm going to be swapping my fuel pump and injector from this engine into the other engine because I don't know the hell for that one. I've got every single pulley, every single seal, every single tensioner. I've got a crank position sensor, front and rear timing belts, water pump, everything. Any hose that I could order that I could get my hands on. Basically, when this engine goes in, I don't want to have a drama, and you will find, if you don't want to go to the extent that I've gone to, I definitely recommend doing your hoses, because a lot of the time when you once you disturb a hose during a job, there is a high possibility that it will crack and leak eventually in the near future once it's up and running again. So, and the thermostat hosing on this is like insane. There's like 10 hoses to do in total. So that's probably one thing I recommend doing. It is a bit pricey, about $700 if you buy the whole hose kit, but you'll save yourself a lot of aggravation in the long run. But apart from that, everything else I'm sort of doing just because I've got I don't know, I just don't want to do it again. Now that the engine's out, I'm just taking advantage of that scenario. So stay tuned. I'm just waiting on the rest of the parts to rock up, and then I'll be getting into the engine swap over process, which will be another few episodes, and then we'll go into the install again. So I'm also going to be probably sending off that whole back half of the exhaust to get done by an exhaust shop or something. I just want a slightly better note, and I've also crushed a bit of exhaust while forward driving, so it's probably on a slightly restricted scenario. So I just want to get a different muffler and maybe a slightly bigger exhaust, and I'll keep the resonator and all that in there, just for a different tune, a different sort of note that comes out of the car. And it's exciting. And the fact that I didn't have to move my car and I could pull the engine out and swing her around here I'm so stoked for that. But I am running out of room in here, so Kerry's getting frustrated because I'm putting a lot of stuff in the spare room and out the back, but it is what it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I was trying to get Kerry in here as a corny joke to say, hey guys, check out my new 1 Kerry power engine. Apparently that joke is not funny at all, and it's probably one of the worst ones she's heard. And she also said it wasn't funny enough for her to get dirty. So let me know in the comments below if that would have been worth doing. I highly doubt it was. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.